Hi, everyone. Audra Martin here, and I am joined by Glen Perkins, current Fox Sports North analyst, former Minnesota Twins pitcher, and, of course, three-time All-Star. Glen, it's kind of a bummer to think that right now this would have been the week of the 2020 All-Star Game. Of course, because of circumstances, the All-Star Game was canceled this year. When you think back to the opportunity to represent your team, not once but three times, how special is that for you?
You know, being a kid growing up in Minnesota, watching the guys down in the field. I remember watching Kirby Puckett and Tom Bernansky and Kent Herbeck and Gary Getty and all those guys, you know, that I now know. But watching them down in that field, being a kid from Minnesota and getting to see those guys, they seemed larger than life. You get to know them, you realize they're not. They're people just like everybody else. But I always took that as when I had that Twins uniform on, I was representing the state of Minnesota, not only as a Twins player, but as a kid that grew up in Minnesota. And I know that there's kids that have gotten drafted and more kids that will get drafted that got the opportunity to watch me and probably saw me warming up down in the bullpen thinking, I want to be him. And I never took that for granted. I never took that responsibility lightly. You know, those are the moments and the things that are just beyond explanation and beyond thought, things you don't think that you know, every kid, a lot of kids think that they're going to be major league players and maybe all-stars and it doesn't come true because you got to be really lucky to get to that point. And I realized how lucky I was, but the experiences I had at those games, I got to participate in those all-star games at a unique time in baseball, with it being Mariano Rivera's last all-star game was my first one. When he retired, and then obviously at Target Field was Derek Jeter's send-off. And so getting to be in the locker room for both of those the guys, baseball legends, two guys that you know, the amount of votes that they get on the first ballot shows what kind of impact they had on the game, and just great representation of the game, of their teams, all those things. So it was such a unique and cool experience for me to be able to be a part of that. But always in the back of my mind was, I know that there's kids watching me that are going to be me someday. And it's a really cool feeling.
And for you, the fact that you got to experience an all-star game in your hometown, playing for your home team in your home ballpark, and then you come in and you get the save in the game. I mean, that's almost like storybook kind of things. I'm sure it's one of those things that you dream of, but never really anticipate or expect it actually happening. Do you look back on it with just the best memories? Is it still surreal to you in a sense?
Going all the way back to early in my career, the ups and downs that I had, to think that I would get to pitch and close out that game, and just the way everything worked out for me to be from Minnesota, to have an all-star game at a time when I was at the peak of my career, to be able to participate in that game. I'll never forget running out on that field and hearing those fans cheer, and knowing that so many of them were just like me, that they were kids that grew up in Minnesota. And those were things I didn't think about, who I was going to pitch to. I didn't think about that I'm in an all-star game. I thought about all these fans are cheering for me and I'm just like them. Like it was just this moment for me that like everything came full circle, and how fortunate I was to be out on the field at that time, you know, in front of the world, in front of all those Twins fans that were at that game that night. I knew in that moment I was able to kind of gather myself enough to realize, unless I pitched like in a World Series game, that was going to be the highlight of my career. So I was able to take it all in. I was cognizant of the fact of what I was doing. You know, and I tell a story of when I came out to pitch in that game, then Kurt Suzuki came in to catch. And he came out and he did it just like any other game. He's like, hey, 1 fastball, 3 slider, you know, shake, first sign, all those things. And I'm like, dude, this is crazy. He goes, just get the guys out. Like, he kind of brought me back to, like, you know, out of where I was like out of body, like looking around that stadium as I'm running in, like, this is crazy. And he brought me back. But, you know, being able to have that moment with all my family and friends there, and then all the people across the state of Minnesota, to be able to be a part of that is just, it still gives me chills when I think about it.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the trip down memory lane with us. I like I said, I always just get goosebumps listening to you talk about it, because that was just such a cool moment. So thanks for bringing back some great memories. We appreciate it, and hope to see you in person at the ballpark soon.
Yes, very soon. Thank you, Audra.
Yep, thanks.